Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update. Join the only official Telegram channel of Rao's IAS Study Circle to get relevant material and important updates.
Hello students, there is an announcement for you regarding the optional classes which we at Rao's IAS are starting at Bengaluru and New Delhi Center. The optional paper of Public Administration will be taken up by Anubhav Sharma sir at the Bengaluru campus on 26 September from 3:30 pm. For the history optional subject, orientation class at the Bengaluru campus will be taken up by Parampreet Singh sir on 27th of September from 3:30 pm. And the orientation for geography as an optional subject will be taken up by Indrajit Bariyar sir on 27th September from 6 pm. So these three subjects will be taken up at Bengaluru Center. Shobik Sen sir will take up the optional classes for psychology optional at New Delhi on 28th of September from 3:30 pm. And this will be followed up by the orientation class of sociology by Dr. Surendra Singh sir on 28th of September from 6 pm onwards. On 29th September, the orientation class will be taken up for PSIR optional by Rahul Puri sir from 3:30 pm. Whereas on the same day, that is on 29th September from 6 pm onwards, orientation classes for the history optional will be taken up by Kritika ma'am and Mathimaran Raju sir. Next, on 30th of September, the orientation class for public administration will be taken up by Dr. V.K. Kaushik sir from 3:30 pm, which will be followed up by the orientation class for geography optional at New Delhi campus from 6 pm on 30th of September by Vineet Thaplu sir. Now these orientation classes will be conducted both online and also in the offline mode. And these classes you can interact with your teachers about the optional subjects, the nature of questions asked, and also the syllabus provided by UPSC.
Hello everyone and welcome to Daily News Simplified, your one-stop solution to detailed analysis of current affairs which are published in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper and are equally relevant for your UPSC preparation. Articles dated 22nd of September 2022 are listed on your screen, and the time stamping along with notes in PDF and Word format are given in the description box. So let us begin with the discussion on first article. Before dwelling into the discussion, let us go through the weekly answer writing practice session. Here is your question for weekly answer writing. The question is with respect to the performance of DISCOMs or distribution companies in India. The question reads, the power distribution continues to be the weakest link in supply chain of power sector. In the light of this statement, discuss various constraints and the challenges which are faced by DISCOMs in India. You have to answer this question in 250 words and do try to write the way forward with respect to the DISCOMs. In order to understand the topic better, you can go through the DNS dated 27th of July 2022 in which we have given the detailed discussion on the performance of discussion and all related issues on this topic. The link to the DNS dated 27th of July 2022 is given in the description box. Let us now begin the first article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 15th, that is the international page. Despite being a news which includes Russia and US and has limited approach towards India, this article is important from the perspective of Indian diplomacy as well as India's national security. The context of the article says that US President has warned that Russia might use a nuclear weapon to meet its interest in the Eastern Europe, especially the Ukraine. And the US President Joe Biden has also warned against the peaceful regime which might get destabilized or which might get disbalanced with respect to Russia's move. And this will disbalance the regime on non-nuclear proliferation. Now, from the perspective of UPSC, nuclear proliferation, nuclear treaties, and international nuclear related agreements are important for your General Studies Paper 1 under International Relations of India and International Organization. The same can be asked in the prelims as well. It is also important under General Studies Paper 3 for India's national security because both of India's hostile neighbor, that is Pakistan and China, are using the nuclear energy for the weaponization. The content of this discussion will include the basics on what is non-nuclear proliferation, What is the basic history of non-nuclear proliferation at the global level? What is India's nuclear doctrine, or how India sees nuclear weapon as a threat or as a deterrence mechanism? And what is India's nuclear policy towards the enemy countries, or India's nuclear policy with respect to the weaponization? Now, before going into the article itself, let us see what is nuclear proliferation. Nuclear proliferation, well, the term proliferation means to spread, to distribute into many. So, nuclear proliferation is the spread of nuclear weapons, the material or the fissionable material used to generate nuclear weapons, as well as the technology which is used to produce nuclear weapons along with the information. So, everything related to nuclear material, weaponization, technology, and even the spread of information related to the nuclear weapon is part of nuclear proliferation. And the nuclear proliferation has found its mention under the NPT, or Non-Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, also known by the name of Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, which came into existence in 1970. The term non-proliferation was not used before this treaty came into existence. Now let us understand the concept of proliferation from the nuclear perspective in much detail. As you can see, during World War II, Germany was a hostile country under the Adolf Hitler. Germany started the nuclear proliferation program, nuclear weaponization program, and the utilization of fission material or fissile material to develop the nuclear missile. This technology later on was adopted in the case of preemptive strike by US and USSR. Both these countries utilized this technology. However, Germany was not in a case to use this technology against their enemy state. However, US did the same in case of Japan with respect to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which also ended the Second World War. The technology which was used by Germany later on proliferated to Russia and China also. Now, both these countries are the communist countries and they had limited democratic participation. Hence, the approach of nuclear weapon in the hand of Russia and China became more threat to the global peace than what was in the hand of US. With the advent of Cold War, there was a competition and the weaponization between USSR and US as a polar geopolitical powers. The technology which came in the hand of Russia soon get transferred in the hand of China, and in the decade of 1960s, China also began the nuclear weapon test. Soon, the technology proliferated to the other countries which included Pakistan, North Korea, and now the technology is also being assumed to be in the hand of Iran. All these countries are a threat to the world peace, the reason being that these countries are against the legitimate regime. Pakistan is known to sponsor the state terrorism. Pakistan has been the core center for the development and spread of terrorism. North Korea has been hostile with respect to the democracies, and Iran has been reluctant to go for the complete demilitarization in terms of nuclear weapons. That is the reason why the proliferation has not ended despite the passage of NPT. So given this kind of spread of nuclear weapons across the world, what leaders had to do? Now when they came across on a common platform, they found that they need to create a regime, they need to create an international organization and binding provisions so that they can remove or they can end the overall nuclear weaponization across the globe and sustain the global peace. So they brought the three-tier or three-step solution. The first was the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Treaty, which came as an idea in 1968. The treaty was adopted after the China has conducted its nuclear weapon test, and that became a threat to the Western power. When India conducted a test in 1974, a new organization or nuclear supply group was formed which restricted the supply of nuclear material between the nations. In 1993, Fissile Material Control Treaty came into proposal. However, this treaty has not yet been finalized and it is under the process. These three-step solution actually tried to bring down the control regime as far as nuclear material, technology and missiles are concerned. NPT, on the other hand, has also called for the complete disarmament with respect to the nuclear weapon. Now let us go through the brief history of Treaty on Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons or NPT. How this treaty came into being and how it has been performing. After the Hiroshima-Nagasaki attack, there was a hue and cry across the global world that nuclear weapon might even end the human race altogether. So, in 1946, the winning parties or the winning powers of World War II decided to bring a combined effort to safeguard the world through peaceful use of nuclear energy, which means the energy or power generation using the nuclear power. In 1949, however, this effort came to an end because there was no common consensus. But 4 years down the line, US President Dwight D. in the United Nations General Assembly brought a proposal, and he proposed to bring a peaceful regime for nuclear power through the organizational structure. The President of the United States called for a new organization that will look into the use of nuclear material by the nuclear nations. And consequently, in 1957, International Atomic Energy Agency was formed. But there was a limitation. This agency only had a power of surveillance, assistance, and safeguarding of the nuclear energy and not the nuclear weapons. So, nuclear energy was controlled. The nations who were going for the nuclear power reactors were under the surveillance of IAEA. Even today, India is also part under the surveillance of IAEA. However, what about the weapons? In 1964, China conducted its first nuclear test. The entire globe was under shock. By the time of 1960s or the mid 1960s, efforts began to reduce down the spread of nuclear weapon technology to the other countries. Both pole power, that is US and USSR, did their best to control the spread of nuclear technology to the other countries. However, they were very limited in their success. Because of that, in 1970, this treaty was signed. And this treaty actually brought Article X or Article 10 as their adoption. Under this article, it was decided that the treaty, after 25 years of its adoption, that is in 1995, this treaty will be revived. However, the provision was to revise the treaty after every 5 years. But in 1995, the treaty was extended indefinitely till the time remains. And this is the reason why India has not been the member of NPT, because India considered NPT to be discriminatory. The treaty calls for complete disarmament, but none of the members who have rectified, including US and USSR, has not completely disarmed themselves with the nuclear weapon technology. They still consist thousands of nuclear weapons of their own. And this is the reason why India considers this treaty to be discriminatory against the developing countries and their security concerns. Now, what are the objectives of NPT? The first objective of NPT is to spread the nuclear weapon and its technology so that the nuclear technology should not fall in the hand of hostile states or the states which have connection to the terrorist organization. Because the moment a terrorist organization achieve in creating the nuclear weapons, that will create havoc as far as global security is concerned. The third thing is that they want to have cooperation with respect to the nuclear energy, both the fission energy as well as the fusion energy. The treaty also calls for the complete disarmament. However, this is not completely adhered. The parties themselves have a huge stockpile of nuclear weapons themselves. The treaty also calls for the binding provisions. However, these provisions had not been followed in letter and spirit. It talks about the confidence building measures and also take the assistance from the IAEA. The complete disarmament and the binding provision remain most of the controversial issue and also the reason why India is not being participative and not being a member of NPT at all. Now, as you can see, these are the members shown on the map. The members such as India, Pakistan or even South Sudan are not member to NPT. They are shaded in the red color. The countries which are shaded in light blue color are the nuclear states and also the countries that have rectified. It also includes UK. The countries shaded in the dark blue color such as France and China are the member of NPT but they have not completely rectified the treaty. And the last one is the orange country, that is the North Korea, that had the membership with respect to NPT but gave up the membership later on. So after understanding the entire treaty, let us understand what India has perspective with respect to the nuclear power and the utilization of nuclear energy for the weaponization. So India, as an independent and democratic country, has also developed its own nuclear doctrine. Nuclear doctrine is nothing but an ideology that says how nuclear weapons and nuclear weapon state would employ or use their nuclear weapon during peace and during war. So how India will utilize its nuclear weapon when there is a peacetime, that is the time that we are going through right now, and how India will utilize its nuclear weapon when India is in the state of war with the enemy countries. So India has clearly stated that India follows no first use policy on nuclear weapons. But it has started in 1940s itself. Before India's independence, Homi Jahangir Baba, he established the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research where the nuclear research actually began. In 1962, after Chinese attack on India, India's impetus for the development of nuclear weapons solidified. 1968 came the NPT and because of controversial pointers, India refused to sign the NPT and still India have the same stand on NPT. India conducted the first nuclear test as Operation Smiling Buddha in 1974. In 1998, India replicated the nuclear test. In 1999, India announced its first doctrine or nuclear doctrine known by the name No First Use Policy. That is the most important aspect of India's nuclear doctrine. In 2003, India created the Nuclear Command Authority. Now please understand what this is. Nuclear Command Authority is under the Prime Minister of India, which simply proves that no other authority except the elected executive, that is the Prime Minister, will have control over the use, distribution of nuclear weapons in India. So Prime Minister and not the President has the real power to use nuclear weapons in India. As per India's nuclear doctrine, no first use simply means, which was adopted in 1998, that only in the case of retaliation against a nuclear attack, India will attack the enemy country or enemy authority. This attack can be on India's territory or the Indian forces anywhere. So let's say Indian forces is conducting a joint drill in, let's say, United States of America or in Russia, and some external authority has created a nuclear attack on Indian forces, then India can retaliate. Under no circumstances India will ever use the nuclear weapon without any attack on itself. Now there are certain benefits and limitations of this policy. The first benefit is that it comes with the restraining weapon program. The moment we say that we are not going to use the nuclear weapon for the first time, simply proves that India will not create a huge stockpile of weapon under its program. It will also bring the minimum war probability, because India never says that we will use the nuclear weapon for the first time or we will initiate the nuclear war for the first time. There is a very low probability of having a war. The same policy has also brought the assurance to the peaceful neighbors such as Nepal, such as Sri Lanka or such as Bangladesh and Bhutan that India will not act as a superpower with nuclear weapons on them. And lastly, such peaceful record of India has also assured that India can have a good candidature towards Nuclear Supplier Group or United Nations Security Council permanent membership. However, this also comes with a limitation. The first one is that there is a projection that India is a soft state and it is not going to have a power projection on the first instance if there is a war. Pakistan, that is India's one of the hostile neighbor, does not have such policy, and that is the reason why Pakistan has time and again threatened India to use nuclear weapon on its soil. India's policy is also silent on the use of nuclear weapon by the non-state actors such as the terrorist organization. What if a terrorist organization from Afghanistan or Pakistan launches a nuclear missile on India? Will India launch the retaliation nuclear missile on the people of Pakistan to take revenge with the terrorist organizations? So these are the following limitations on this policy. Now we come to the other aspect of these policy followed by India. The first one is that India says that India will go for building and maintaining the credible minimum deterrence, that whatever stockpile India will have, let's say 100 missiles, that will be sufficient for India to create a minimum deterrence. India is not looking to create thousands of missiles for its security purposes. The second thing is which creates India to be a hard power. India in its policy has clearly mentioned that whatever retaliation India will take, India will be going to have a massive and designed unacceptable damage to the enemy countries. India can only take attack once authorized by the civilian political leadership, that is the Prime Minister, headed through the Nuclear Command Authority. India will never retaliate using the nuclear weapon on the non-nuclear weapon state, such as Nepal, Bhutan or any other country which does not have nuclear weapons. India is also committed towards bringing nuclear weapon-free world. But until and unless the members of NPT go for complete disarmament, India is unlikely to go for complete nuclear-free world. So the countries which have the highest share of nuclear weapons should take the lead for the complete disarmament. But given the current geopolitics, the rise of China, the US, the approach of Russia in the Eastern Europe, and the formation of strategic blocs such as Quad, the future of nuclear disarmament looks bleak. With this entire discussion at place, I am leaving you with this practice question. So the question says, discussing the Indian nuclear weapon doctrine, identify the benefits and the limitation on no first use policy of India on nuclear weapon. You have to answer this question in 150 words. With this discussion placed, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 1st and talks about the historical aspect of UPSC syllabus. The article actually deals with a sword that is going to be written to India, the sword that belongs to the Nizams of Hyderabad. Now, from the perspective of UPSC examination, both in the prelim examination as well as your mains examination, regional powers or the ruling dynasties are extremely important. So today we are going to discuss about the Nizams of Hyderabad, their historical background and how this region was actually ruled. The article actually talks about the 14th century ceremonial sword. As you can see in the photograph, the sword actually resembles the shape of a snake. As you can easily deduce that this sword is a ceremonial, it is not going to be used in the war. So it is a ceremonial sword which is under the control of Glasgow Museum. Glasgow is part of United Kingdom. The sword belongs to the Maharaja Kishan Prasad, who was the Prime Minister to the Nizam of Hyderabad. This sword belongs to the Nizamat of Hyderabad but was not used by Nizam himself. The original owner or the one who has created this sword is unknown, because the state of Hyderabad has been under the control of various kingdoms. For example, started under the control of Chalukyas, Kakatiyas, on which UPSC has already asked the question. It was also under the Sultanate of Delhi under Muhammad bin Tughlaq, followed by Bahmani Empire, which fought with the Vijayanagar. They were under the Masunuri Nayak, Vijayanagar, and Nizams in the last, following to the subsidiary alliance under the British. So over the past many centuries, Hyderabad has been shifting from one dynasty to the other dynasty. So our focus for today would be the basic study of Nizam and potential topics. As you can see on this map, the area shaded or the area which lies between the river Krishna and its tributary and the river Godavari. Today, Hyderabad is part of the Telangana state. However, the erstwhile area was shared between the Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. The capital of the Hyderabad state was of course the Hyderabad city, which was ruled by the Nizams. The state of Hyderabad in the current status came under the Chin Kulich Khan, who had been given the title of Nizam ul Mulk. Mulk means country. So he was declared as a head of the country and he was made the governor of the Deccan. In 1722, he was also made as a Wazir or the Prime Minister. So, as holding that power, he consolidated the region across. His successor then were called the Nizams of Hyderabad. So, it started from Chin Kuling Khan and later on it became a tradition to be named as Nizams of Hyderabad. Nizam ul Mulk is considered to be the founder of Hyderabad state, the current state. He also signed the Treaty of Bhopal with the Peshwas or the Marathas and also as an arbitrator under Battle of Karnal. Karnal is in the state of Haryana. Nasir Jung was executed by Muzaffar Jung. Muzaffar Jung actually took the help of French to consolidate their empire. After him there was Salabat Jung. He became the ruler with the help of French, and the close connection of Hyderabad with that of the French was not acceptable to the Britishers. Britishers had bitter relations with the state of Hyderabad, and that is the reason why they were eager to follow the subsidiary alliance and the imposition of subsidiary alliance on the state of Hyderabad. And to your knowledge, Hyderabad was the first state on which the subsidiary alliance was actually imposed. The best known cultural contribution of Nizams of Hyderabad is their contribution towards art, culture and literature, and especially the palaces like Chau Mahalla Palace or the Salah Jung Museum. In 1798, under the Nizam Ali Khan or Asaf Jah II, Hyderabad state was forced to enter into an agreement, and that agreement was subsidiary alliance. The concept of subsidiary alliance was actually given by the French and not the British, and it was given under the rule of Dupleix, who was the governor of French in India. So Dupleix brought the subsidiary alliance. It was followed by the Britishers later on and was adopted and enforced on various states. Now these are the 5 pointers of subsidiary alliance. Do remember that this is very, very important. The 5 pointers that every state under the subsidiary alliance should follow. Now, I want you to comment in the comment box who imposed the subsidiary alliance on the state of Hyderabad. You should name the person from East India Company who imposed subsidiary alliance on the state of Hyderabad. The first important point of subsidiary alliance is that these states were forced to accept the permanent stronghold of British Army, and this British Army is going to stay in the territories of that particular state. For example, under this British Army is going to stay with the state of Hyderabad and inside the territory of Hyderabad, and the state of Hyderabad should pay the subsidy for the maintenance of that British Army. The second provision is that the state is not there to employ any European without the permission of the Britishers. So let's say they want to employ a French accountant. So for that, they require permission from the Britishers. They could not discuss any other issues with any other particular ruler. So Hyderabad have no power to discuss anything with the state of Maharashtra or with the state of Mysore. They will keep a British occupant permanently stationed in their court. So all courtroom discussions will be known to the Britishers. And the last one, they have no permission to join any alliance without the Britishers, or they have no power to announce war against any power without the Britishers' permission. Simply means all these 5 pointers proves that if a particular state joins a subsidiary alliance, they will be completely powerless. And being powerless, they are not going to have any war against the Britishers themselves. However, against all these 5 pointers, the Britishers agreed to defend these subsidiary alliance states in case of security issues. With this discussion in place, let us now move to the next article for the day. This article of the Hindu newspaper appeared on page 6 and talks about the recent achievement taken by the Indian Space Research Organization with respect to the hybrid propulsion system. Now, propulsion system is the one which helps the rocket to move upward and to launch a satellite in the space. And in this case, ISRO is going to use a hybrid. Hybrid here means combination of two different forms. So, ISRO has launched a new hybrid propulsion system in which the hybrid stands for the combination of solid fuel and the liquid oxidizer. Now, please understand this. In the space above, there is almost nil oxygen. So, the moment we give up the stratosphere, the amount of oxygen that is there in the atmosphere is quite low. And for the combustion, for the burning of fuel, we required oxidizer. And here, the oxygen plays an important role. Previously, the oxidizers were in the form of solids. But now, ISRO is going to utilize the liquid oxidizer to provide combustion to their solid fuel. Now, why we are going for hybrid? Hybrid here simply means that we will go for more efficiency. Under the hybrid propulsion system, vehicle propulsion system is being used with two or more sources of propulsion. This propulsion is in the form of different kind of fuels where we can use batteries, petrol, diesel, solar power, nuclear, hydrogen and any other source of energy. For example, as of now we are using many hybrid cars in which we are using the conventional petrol or diesel along with the battery or the solar power. In a similar manner, ISRO is going to use the hybrid or the combination of two or more fuels for propelling their rockets upstage. The need for bringing the hybrid model is that it will bring more efficiency because there will be more burning of fuel. As liquid oxidizer is going to bring more efficiency, there will be a complete burning of the fuel, leaving less pollutants. It will be more greener because of the less emission of greenhouse gases. As it is a liquid in the format, it will be easy to handle and transport. It will bring more futuristic technology because as the amount of weight will be reduced, more heavy satellites and more futuristic projects could be launched in the future. It is a scalable, that means it can be increased in n amount of scale from small model to the large model, and it provides restarting and throttling capability on the motor. This is extremely important thing. See, what happens is that when we launch a rocket, it completely burns, after which it shut down. Now, if we go for hybrid propulsion system, we can restart the vehicle, let's say PSLV or GSLV, and we can restart this vehicle after shutting it off so as to save the fuel and provide the propulsion for longer duration. Let's say there was a fuel to run for 100 km at height, but in this model we can run it for 80 km height, shut it down, then without any propulsion we can go in the space for let's say 20 kilometers and then restart the engine to move another 20 kilometers. That means here the same fuel will help us to go 120 kilometers in total journey. That is the reason why restarting and throttling of the motor in this model is very efficient. The fuel that is going to be used are in two states. As far as solid is concerned, so it will include HTPB based, which is hydroxyl terminated polybutadiene with aluminized fraction. Along with this, liquid oxygen will be used, which will oxidize or burn this above solid fuel. Now, if we go through the basic model, these are the three forms of rockets. Liquid rockets, where both oxidizer as well as the fuel remains liquid. Then we have solid rockets, where the solid propellant is used along with the oxidizer, which also remains to be solid. Under the hybrid rocket, which is part of the discussion, the oxidizer remains a liquid while the fuel will remain the solid. In all the three models, the lower part is actually the part which is used for the propulsion. So this liquid oxygen is going to burn the solid fuel from bottom section in the chamber, and that will bring the thrust to the rocket upwards. And this will save the time, there will be better efficiency, it will be more greener, and will be more efficient with respect to the saving of fuel, less fuel, more lengthier journey. With this discussion in place, let us now move to the last article for the day. This article appeared in Text in Context section of the Hindu newspaper and talks about the rules for identifying the criminals as per the recent amendment in the Criminal Procedure Act 2022. Now, it has been observed that UPSC in the last 2-3 years, both in prelims and mains, has been focusing upon the legal perspective of Indian polity. From that perspective, we will try to simplify these rules, the requirement, and the basic concerns associated with this amendment. The Ministry of Home Affairs, which is also the nodal agency for the identification of internal security matters, have notified that they will bring up the rules related to the Criminal Procedure Identification Act 2022. The aim of this act is to empower the law enforcement agencies such as the police department at the state level for taking the measurements. Now, measurements here means those identification related concepts such as fingerprints, palm prints, footprints, photograph, iris and retina scan, physical and biological samples, which may also include the DNA, signature and handwriting, which are also the behavioral aspect of measurements. Now, this act will empower the police department to take all these measurements from the convicts as well as other persons who have been identified with respect to the crime for the purpose of identification of criminals or better investigations. Now, all these measurements are part of the investigation. Thus, measurements help to solve a case. That case will, and the storing of these important database help the police department and the investigating agencies to find out the future crimes that could have been conducted by a particular convict, and it also helps in solving the crimes in preemptive approach. Now, why do we require such kind of act? It is to establish the identity of a person, to identify who was the actual culprit, to have a preemptive approach to solve the crime before it is committed, and to have or find out the previous connection of the convict in other crimes. Let's say today a particular person has committed a crime with respect to murder of a person, and if the police department had some measurements, let's say the fingerprints, footprints, or even the handwriting of that particular murderer, they will be in a position to identify and solve the case in a preemptive approach. Secondly, India is a country which mostly focuses on the interrogation method. So, substituting the measurement-led method with that of the interrogation method brings the human touch in the criminal justice system. So, that is one of the requirements why this act has been amended and has been extended in terms of its scope. So, let us identify what it is all about. The Identification of Person Act 1920 was the previous act which dealt with the collection of measurements. The problem is that this act, which is almost 100 years old, had a limited number of categories of measurements. For instance, on this screen, as you can see, we have n number of important measurements that are included in the new act. Previously, it had a very limited category, and that too different for different people such as convicted and non-convicted person. Apart from that, it had limited authority given to the police department also to go for the measurement. The second limitation of the previous act was that it had limited offences, that is, offences in which there was a rigorous imprisonment more than 1 year. So, if there is a person who has committed, let's say, a small crime in which he was imprisoned or punished for, let's say, 6 months, in that case, police authority had no power to collect the measurements. Now, all these issues have been resolved. So, based on the need of a law and rules, government has brought certain new laws. So, why do we had a need? The first one is there is a new technology. Now we have technology which has extended into the human field. More technology is available. So, why not use this technology in order to identify the culprits? There is more accuracy. So, DNA profiling, fingerprint profiling, and even the profiling of the behavior is far more accurate than the other evidence-based justice system. There is a scope for more measurements now available. We now also have the National Crime Record Bureau that maintains the national level criminal database, and that database has helped the police authorities to nab the criminals. There is a requirement to empower the magistrate, the judicial magistrate, to direct the police authorities for the collection of data and to also empower the police authorities at the state level to collect samples in this regard. Now, based on this requirement, government has brought new rules under the CRPC Act. This rule have increased the types of measurements, including the iris and retina collection, even the DNA collection, which was not part of the previous 100-year-old Act. It can also include the DNA case-to-case basis. However, it is subjected to the misuse of a profile. It also provides for the collection, storage and analysis of physical and biological samples, including the DNA. National Crime Records Bureau will issue the standard operating procedure for the collection of these samples. The procedure for destruction and disposal record is to be specified by the NCRB. Now please understand these 2 points. When a crime is conducted, samples and measurements are taken, let's say fingerprints, profiling and other things. Now, how this will be collected, how this will be destructed, this will be decided by the NCRB because this is the main agency which is involved in the collection of data. The rules actually talks about that NCRB will be the core authority for this process. However, the entire procedure of collecting and destructing of these measurements has not been defined and it has been left to the NCRB for the same. The most controversial part of these rules is that the records of the convicts and the measurements can be kept with the police department for up to 75 years. And it is a very long duration, hence it is being criticized. The exemptions which are given under the rules is if there is a dispute or crime related to elections or crime related to the public servant, then only the superintendent of police will have power to issue the collection orders. If there is any matter in which a person is involved in a particular crime previously, in that case, the order will be given under the CRPC Act. Now, please understand the second point. Let's say there is a person who has been convicted for the crime for the first time. For that person, the measurement will be taken outside the CRPC. But if a person who has committed a crime previously also, for that person, the measurement of particular samples will be based on the CRPC itself. Now, what are the basic issues involved in this act and rules? The first one is the concern related to the triple test for privacy given by Supreme Court itself. Now, as far as triple test is concerned, it is concerned with the legality, need and proportionality of a law. As far as legality is concerned, so this amendment was passed by the parliament, hence it is completely legal. As far as need is required, so we have already discussed the entire need of this law, hence under the second point of proportionality, yes, the need of the law is there. But what about the proportionality? Proportionality here simply means what is the balance between cost and benefit of a particular law. Is cost more than benefit? If that is the case, it should be denied. If benefits are more than the cost or loss to society, let's say the powers provided to the police under this act leads to the harassment of Indian citizens. Under that case, cost will be more than the benefit and it will go against the proportionality. So the law should create a balance between the cost to the society and the benefit to the society, and in most cases benefit should be more than the cost to the society. If that is the case, it should be adopted. As of now, the law has not passed the triple test and might end in the legal battle in the future. The next concern is it has included the derivative data. Let's say handwriting. Now, handwriting is a subjective one. It is based on the behavior of a person and can be questionable. Then comes the predictive policing, as it deals with the prediction of whether a person was involved in the crime or not based on that data. It can lead to the harassment further. The manner of data collection is based on the overpower or the excessive power given to the police. It goes against the right to be forgotten because of the 75-year clause. Taking measurement even for the petty offences less than 1 year. So if a person is involved in pickpocketing or if a person is involved in slapping the other person, samples might be taken and can be lead to the harassment. There is a threat of mass surveillance by NCRB or the central government, and the act bars or restrict the court proceedings for the things which are done in good faith. So let's say, in order to control the riots, the police has beaten up a particular person and that person had major injuries and was hospitalized. Will the police department be punished for this? No. Will the samples of a police officer will be taken? No. Because here the concept of good faith will be involved, and that good faith might lead to the another phase of misuse. Hence, it is a matter of time that this law should be brought into the judicial scrutiny before bringing it into the practice. With this discussion in place, now we come to the end of today's Daily News Simplified. Thank you.